I think it is as important to care for orphans and widows and those in distress as it is to get together and have Bible study and worship. I think they go hand in hand. And some years back, God led my wife and I to adopt our first child, and from there, the burden slowly began to develop out to see God work in the heart of others in our church. And as that burden began to grow, God began to show us more and more people in our church that were already engaged in orphan care at some level. And God has been, over time, raising up more and more families to foster or adopt or to mentor or emergency foster care. And so it's kind of exciting to see that developing out. If you look at Isaiah 58, you can see God chastising the old covenant people who were engaged in spiritual activity, very devoted at some level because they were even fasting, and they asked the question, why don't you hear our prayer and answer us when we fast and call out to you? And among other justice issues, he brings up the issue of the fatherless and orphan care and chastises them. God's always wanted his covenant people to live out their faith by caring for the marginalized, people at risk, people who are powerless, and certainly orphans rise to the top in that conversation time and again in Scripture. I believe that when God brings a particular child or children into somebody's home, you are influencing them with a message of Christ. It is not only that, but I can guarantee it's not less than that for us. And I remember my wife saying, well, I think we can handle one at a time. She's like, that's just my capacity. That's what we can handle. And we went in one day and we were looking at these profiles of children. My wife's sitting here and flipping through stacks of paper. And I look over at my wife and she's got the profiles of 3 kids laid out in front of her. And I remember turning back away, not wanting to disturb her, and kind of smirking and telling God, well, we'll see how this turns out. And God led her at that point to lead us into adopting 3, a sibling group of 3. God didn't design the world to have orphans in it. He designed the family. And so every time you see an orphan, you see something that wasn't supposed to be. And it's something that's dishonoring to God.